Hi guys, thanks for joining me, Bill, the Kansas Flamingo Chef, and today we are talking about Buffalo Trace Bourbon. If you've never had it, you don't know what you're missing. If you have had it and you can't find it because it's allocated, you know what a pain it is to find a bottle of this stuff. Now I've got a bunch because I've stockpiled it over the years, but that's not the point. The point is, what if you don't have any and you want some? Or worse, what if you got a bottle like this and you can't find any more? So we need to find a replacement, or at least temporarily, until we can find another bottle at the liquor store. Because allocated bourbon right now, when it shows up at the store, is gone literally in minutes. So what do you replace it with? Well, you need something that has a similar flavor profile, a similar alcohol content or proof, and preferably something that comes from the same region so it will have a similar water feel. This happens to come from Kentucky. If you've never been to the distillery, I highly recommend it. Go on the tour of the Buffalo Trace facility. It's absolutely beautiful. But the water that they use for this bourbon is actually filtered through limestone and consequently gives it a very distinctive flavor. So I recommend two products, and that's all we're going to talk about. There are plenty others on the market that you're probably going to hear about, but these are the two that I think will fill the void closely for about the same amount of money. Now, it's important to point out that at the time of making this video, I can buy a bottle of this for about $25. Years ago, it was less. I know in a lot of parts of the country, it's a lot more. You get online and there's some crazy numbers of what this stuff sells for. I won't do it. So we're talking about that $25 to $30 bourbon area, okay? I want to show you two products. The first one is only going to be available if you have a Total Wine facility near you, and that is Walcott. You've probably heard of it, or if you haven't, you may have heard it mentioned. This comes from the Barton Company, 1792, the people that make this stuff right here, highly sought after. Very good product. Very similar in flavor profile, comes from the same general area, same water source. The mash is comparable. Now, this is a very similar price point. You're talking about $23, I believe is what I paid for this. I will say this. It is a younger whiskey, so it tends to have a little more, if you've never heard this phrase, Kentucky hug. If you know what that means when you drink bourbon, there are two principal feels that you get, burns, quote unquote. One being in your cheeks, that's from rye. If you're drinking a wheated bourbon like a Weller or a Maker's Mark or MR13, something like that, you're going to get no mouthfeel because there's no rye. Then you get this warming in your chest, and that's called the Kentucky hug. That's from the corn. And to be bourbon, it has to be at least 51% corn. This has a cinnamon feel to it because there's not as much rye. So consequently, the flavor profile is a little different. Price point's almost exactly the same. Alcohol content's the same. They're both 90 proof or 45% alcohol. It's a good substitute, especially if you're mixing it or putting it on ice. It's not as good drinking it neat. But again, only available at Total Wine. Now, I know there's going to be people who are going to disagree with me, and that's fine, but I'm a bourbon junkie. This is my opinion. Put that in the byline if you like. My opinion. The perfect substitute. Almost identical mouthfeel. Almost identical Kentucky hug. Almost the same flavor profile. For the same amount of money and a little more alcohol because it's a 94 proof instead of 90. Elijah Craig Small Batch. This stuff comes from the same region. I mean, miles away. Hi, Panther. It tastes almost exactly the same. The color is almost the same. The aroma is almost the same. If you don't believe me, if you have a bottle of each, put these on the cat. If you have a bottle of each, and you pour a small pour of both whiskeys in glasses, have somebody else pour them so you don't know which is which, rotate them around and figure out if you can tell which one is which. And I tell you right now, it's hard to do. The only difference between the two, other than who made them, this is a little hotter in alcohol because it's 94 instead of 90, but the flavor profile is almost exactly the same. This is available. This is hard to find. This is $25. This is $25 unless you're buying it on the aftermarket for $70. Do yourself a favor. Pick up a bottle of this and give it a shot. You might really be surprised that until you can find another one of these, or if you just have to have it put on the shelf, go get this. If you have any other questions about bourbon, about any cocktails, about food, whatever, if you want to talk about these big furry people, drop me a line, bill@kansasflamingochef.com. Have a great day. Check out the site, kansasflamingochef.com. And as always, eat and drink fabulous.